Chaton is here, and she's cute and tuny AF. She's the second limited Ignis Vanguard in the game, which marks the first element to have 2 limited Vanguards. Let's take a look at her builds and teams, and of course, how she compares to Fuyuka. Similar to Sparkla, Chaton has 2 different ways to use her skill, based on holding or tapping her skill, each corresponding to one of her 2 builds. Her first build is an AoE focused build, shooting bombs that bounce from target to target. When only a single target exists, the bombs will not bounce additional times, which restricts this build mostly to AoE content. The other build shoots a laser that triggers a dot effect for straightforward and consistent damage. We'll be looking into this one during this video guide. A more interesting part of Chaton's kit is her ultimate. This changes her basic attack into a pew-pew for a long duration, dealing ultimate damage instead of auto-attack damage. It also generates so much energy that you'll be able to use her ultimate off cooldown without any charge efficiency. This makes an ultimate focused build viable for her. So let's take a look at her team and build options. Note that these team comparisons are for FTP investment levels in a neutral environment. In the current boss splits, skill damage is buffed by 80%, and the skill build also scales harder with limited discs, which we'll cover later. The go-to premium team uses Snowish Laru as well as Flora as supports. Chixia is a suitable substitute for Snowish Laru, though her buffing capabilities aren't quite as good, even when maxed out. If you don't have her, you can use Kasimira or Tilia instead. Anyways, let's look at the potentials for both our ultimate and skill build. We'll start out with the skill build. Take Meowth's Curse and Reincarnation of Darkness as cores. Prioritize Mark of Darkness and Lucky Bullet, followed by Foe Annihilation. Mobile Combat and Doom's Echo are lesser value options that can be taken as well. Snowish Laru won't be doing too much damage in this team, so we'll focus on the supportive parts of her kit. Take Fire Downpour and Special Ammo as cores, with Celebration Resumed, Fairy Tale Rule, and Toy Army. 1 point in 2-gun salute has very good value. On Flora, it's tempting to run a Mind Flare build for more crit rate, but it's better to stick to the Soul Flare butterfly cores, Ember of Tomorrow and Ember Rekindled, as this allows us to take Foreshadowing Verification with maximum uptime for a huge crit damage buff. Along with that, you'll also want Guest Performer, Perfect Acting, and Visual Impact. All of these have very similar values, with Guest Performer and Perfect Acting being better for burst and snapshotting, while Visual Impact is more consistent. Lethal Inferno is also a strong pickup, though you'll need charge efficiency to make it line up properly. Reinforced Impression is also a decent alternative to Visual Impact. Let's look at alternatives for Snowish Laru before we move on. These options include Chixia, Tilia, or Kasimira. Build codes for all team variants can be found in the description. What about the ultimate build? The rest of the team's potential priorities actually don't change at all, so let's focus on Chaton herself. The build is really more of a hybrid build than a pure ultimate build, so Mark of Darkness is still very powerful. Doom's Echo, Curse Fall, and Penetrating Bullet are all core to her ultimates first, and none of them should be skipped. Full Annihilation remains a solid stat stick. 1 point in Dominant Firepower is mandatory, while 1 point in Lucky Bullet is optional, and can yield a small damage increase outside of burst windows. While Chaton's skill build is very straightforward at a glance, there's a little bit of optimization that can buff your damage by a lot. Chaton's skill inflicts a 14-second dot, which, alongside the Mark of Darkness potential, snapshots your active buffs. The damage of a dodge tick combined with a Mark of Darkness proc actually comes fairly close to the base skill damage. As such, you'll want to coordinate your team's buffs, the strongest of which being Snowish Laru's Toy Army, which ramps up to a massive 350% attack 10 seconds after casting her ult. Due to the delay on Toy Army stacking, you'll want to snapshot at 7 to 8 stacks, as after 8, Celebration Resumed will drop off. Buff timing is even more important in her ultimate build, so let's talk about that. Her ultimate grants 15 seconds of Cat's Eye Mark, which starts the second you cast your ultimate, and 20 seconds of Pew Pew time after. This means that the first 10 seconds after you ult will be heavily empowered by Curse Fall, which grants a huge amount of on-hit damage. So this is the window we want to buff. Use Flora's ultimate 2 seconds before Chaton's, so that it could ramp up in time. 2 seconds after starting Chaton's ultimate, use that of Snowish Laru. Before Chaton's ultimate animation is finished, use Flora's skill, then use Chaton's skill. When Toy Army reaches 8 stacks, use Chaton's skill again to snapshot the maximum buffs. Chaton's talents all give fairly generic and consistent value, with her 5th talent and potentially 1st talent having slightly more value. Since her 1st talent gives crit damage, it will scale with your crit rate emblems, which this calculation was done without any of. Speaking of emblems though, let's look at her emblem options, starting with its skill build. On the 70 emblem, both pen and crit rate have a very high value. Note that crit has some additional value that's hard to quantify, as it'll make your skill resets more consistent. Skill crit rate is actually a strong generic line to get as well, holding more value than element damage or other options. On the 80 emblem, skill plus 3 is strong, in between crit rate and your second pen line. Finally, on the 90 emblem, levels in Mark of Darkness are very strong, while the other options, namely Lucky Bullet and Full Annihilation, are slightly weaker than skill crit rate. For the Ulti build, much of the priorities are fairly similar. Remember that this build still does do a decent amount of skill damage. Both Auto and Ultimate plus 3 are not that strong, as most of the damage from the burst is from the potentials rather than raw damage ratios. Plus 3s in Curse Ball, Penetrating Bullet, and Full Annihilation are all above average value lines, but not really by enough to be considered chase lines. Let's take a look at discs. On the skill build, the signatures of both Snowish Laru and Chaton herself are very powerful. Fuyuka's signature boosts auto attack damage, and isn't great in comparison. The event discs are weaker than both the Finale and Cataclysm discs at an equal investment. Sunlit Blossom is solid in the support slot. For the ultimate build, the gains from the Laru and Chaton 6 are dampened but still very strong. Voyage Blueprint gains some additional value, while also holding its own as a support disc, as ultimate damage is not that diluted for Chaton compared to Fuyuka anyways. Speaking of comparing to Fuyuka, how do they compare? Fuyuka's strongest build is her ultimate build, and at lower investments, so is Chaton's. Unlike Fuyuka, Chaton can ult off cooldown without the need for any charge efficiency emblems, allowing her to have a consistent performance regardless of emblem investment. But on the topic of consistency, due to her large amount of hits, that means she'll deliver constant damage, versus Fuyuka, who packs a majority of her damage into the first few punches of her ultimate, and can hit some godly high rolls and some depressing low rolls. In terms of average damage though, they actually come quite close to each other. And that concludes this Chaton guide. All the information covered in this guide can be found on the Chaton page in the GPS calculator, which also now has a new page with all the build codes I've covered in my guides. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!